Today's sermon is loosely based on a New York Times article, How Can Liberals Become Happier? November 5th, 2021, by Brad Wilcox, Hal Boyd, and Wendy Wang. Now, this was one of those articles that's really just a composite of other articles, sort of a portal into other people's thoughts. In one case, that first article cites another article which says that the data from the United States and 9 other countries, quote, consistently found conservatives or right-wingers are happy than liberals or left-wingers. This ideological gap in happiness is not accounted for by democratic differences or differences in cognitive style. We did find, however, that the rationalization of inequality, a core component of conservative ideology, helps to explain why conservatives are, on average, happier than liberals. Why would conservatives be happier? Well, the first article, How Can Liberals Become Happier, was only a rabbit hole that I dove into about what other thinkers think, what other writers have written in their research about what happiness means and how to have more of it. Now, I'm going to issue a disclaimer at this point. Unitarian Universalists are not exclusively liberal. Unitarian Universalists are not exclusively anti-conservatives. UUs are not exclusively Democrats. UUs are not exclusively atheist or agnostics. UUs are not exclusively anything. And because of our diversity, it makes us stronger and more resilient. And I encourage you never to lump Unitarian Universalists as having a unified belief in any one thing. Accordingly, and to be inclusive, I will not try to answer which political ideology is happier, but I still have a lot to say. My studies reveal that happiness is not a function of political ideology, religious belief, or membership in a political party. My searching showed that while human happiness is complex, we can improve our ability to encounter happiness. Happiness seems to be about the attitude we have about the way things are. And maybe this is a difference between the groups. If you are generally okay with the world, your country, your state, your community, and your family, you have more ability to describe yourself as happy. If you are generally not okay with the world, your country, your state, your community, nor your family, you tend to be less happy. Yuval Harari, author of Sapiens, Homo Deus, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, says it this way. Human beings aren't built for satisfaction. Human happiness depends less on objective conditions and more on our own expectations. Our expectations adapt to changing conditions, including the condition of other people. That's keeping up with the Joneses. When things improve, our expectations balloon, and consequently, even a dramatic improvement in conditions might leave us as dissatisfied as before. Harari says happiness is about expectations. He even gives us a formula. Happiness equals reality minus expectations. Happiness is equal to reality minus your expectations. Do our expectations subtract from the happiness we experience? It kind of makes sense to me, because if I expect you to put gas in my car after you borrow it and you don't, then my happiness is diminished because you didn't meet my expectations. But if I expect an empty tank when my car comes back, then I'm not disappointed. Uh, This isn't a zero-sum game. It's just not. But if your expectations often extremely exceed the reality you're living, then you can see the problem. You're not going to be happy or satisfied with anything that happens because it could have turned out better. I'm still struggling with the formula, but it kind of makes sense to me. Happiness is equal to reality minus my expectations. And maybe that's what makes liberal progressive people so intense. We see the way things could be. We aren't content with the way things are, reality. But we spend our time in what Parker Palmer calls the tragic gap, which is the gap between reality and the way things could be, the way we think things should be, the tragic gap. One of my joys during sabbatical was reading books, a luxury not always available during the church year. One book was The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan. It's a short, simple book with a lot of illustrations. But here's some of my takeaways. Our culture tells us to spend our lives on achievements and reaching goals. Our value in life is measured by what we achieve, and we must always strive for the next goal. But the book says goals are like the horizon. You can head in that direction, but you can never get there. Oh, sure, you'll achieve some goals in your life, but most of us continuously focus on what could be if we just work harder, longer, better. But spending your life chasing after the next goal is a formula for frustration, not happiness, because there will always be more goals. What if, instead of focusing on the gap between what we perceive as reality and the possibilities, what if we turn our view around to look at our gains? The gains we've made in our lives, of time spent with family, friends, achievements like graduating school, having children, time spent with wonderful friends, or the incredible achievements you've made in your life. If you look at them, what if we shift our 100% focus away from goals and spent some time focused on the gains we've made in our lives? Goals are important. In fact, they're essential to having a direction in life. But if you never acknowledge that you are an amazing person because of all you have done, because of all the people you have helped, because of all the kind deeds you've done and all the love you've given, if you never recognize your gains, then it's predictable that happiness will elude you. So if we measure our life by gains instead of our unattained goals, if we celebrate what we've done instead of being depressed about what might be, if we shift our view and then we don't have to live in that gap, then maybe we can open the door to receive a little more happiness. Arthur Brooks has promoted some simple, easy steps of being happy. He's made a living out of it. Some of his books and articles explain the happiness portfolio. Brooke concluded after years of endless research of his own and of others' data that there are 4 activities that will increase your happiness. Drum roll, please. Brooks says that to increase your happiness, you need to focus on 4 things: faith, family, community, and work. Now, the first 3 should be pretty readily accepted by you. Faith takes us from this earthly existence to a connection to something that is much larger than what we are experiencing in this physical life. Faith gives us perspective to temporal things and events that are impossible to understand. Family can be an immense, eternal source of happiness. It can be. And community. Community is essential for a life to have a meaningful purpose as we move from me to we. But let's talk about that fourth one, work. Now, if you read Dilbert or watch The Office, Parks and Recreation, 30 Rock, or Scrubs, or if you spent your career in utter despair, you may not agree that work is an essential element of happiness. You know what the research of United States workers shows when tens of thousands of people were asked this question: are you somewhat or completely satisfied with your job? Drum roll. 89% of U.S. workers say that they are somewhat or completely satisfied with their job. The data says that it doesn't matter what kind of work you do, as long as you believe that you are creating value with your life and creating value in the lives of other people. If you are serving others with your work and you believe that you are creating value, happiness is an outcome. Doesn't matter what you do, how much you earn, what product you make, or with whom you work. So Arthur Brooks says you can significantly increase your happiness by focusing your life energy on four things: faith, family, community, and work. Just an unbiased observation here. I know a place where you can experience all four: faith, family, community, work, right here at this church, your one-stop center for leading a good life. But my journey down the rabbit hole of happiness eventually revealed that seeking happiness is the wrong goal. We shouldn't strive to be happy. Daniel Kahneman says it this way: happiness is a momentary experience that arises spontaneously and is fleeting. Meanwhile, satisfaction is a long-term feeling built over time and based on achieving goals and building the kind of life you admire. Happiness is fleeting, but satisfaction comes from a life well lived. Living a life of serving others, loving others may generate some happiness, true, but true, lasting satisfaction comes over time. It is achieved by living a meaningful life built with human relationships, which are based in love and compassion. The harder you try to pursue an ideal, thinking it'll make you happy, the further away you'll find that hypothetical happiness to be. But if you want more out of life than just transient feelings of happiness, then you'll need to spend your life building the life you admire. When you look at the gains you've made, then you can experience satisfaction. Are liberals less happy than conservatives? I don't think so. Are some people happier than others? In my experience, yes. Can you live a more meaningful life with increasing satisfaction? Yes, but you'll need to do it one day at a time and frequently looking back at your gains that you've made in your faith, family, community, and work. Let's do this together. Imagine all the people we can help. Let's try this together. Let's try. Amen.